This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everyone. This is Novo Man, and welcome again to another session of the Technology Review Council. And we are very, very proud to have Nine Peaks, if you will, a team that I've worked with in the past many, many times. They are very dynamic and very knowledgeable, and they are coming to the table with a very interesting product. So I'm going to simply stop at that point, turn it over to Eric Skidmore. And Eric, if you just take it from here.
All right, thank you, Nov. Appreciate being able to speak today. I appreciate everybody attending. Thank you for your time in advance. My name is Eric Skidmore. I'm the managing partner for Nine Peaks Solutions. We're an organization based in Bend, Oregon. I should say beautiful Bend, Oregon. A little snowy today. Anyway, we welcome you here. Also on the line with me today is Taylor Henniger and Lauren Jensen from Nine Peaks. They'll be helping out during the presentation. Taylor will be doing part of our demo, and Lauren will be looking and watching and helping us out on the backside of the presentation. I encourage people to ask questions through the chat window as we're progressing. I always find it's better to get questions answered at the point they come up, because usually other people have the exact same question at that point. So if we can get the questions answered via chat, that would be great. The recording is going on with everybody, so it'll be available afterwards through the normal methods. An HCM Reporter product profile. HCM's Human Capital Management Reporter. The problem that's being addressed by this product is the current HCM product tenant is no longer going to be available, or a capture of the information in the tenant is required at a specific point in time for all employees. And so this is a product that will go through and record history from your existing HCM tenant. And so maybe that's a Kronos Ultimate Group UltiPro, or an ADP Workforce Now, or an ADP Enterprise 5, or another cloud-based HCM system. Specifically, the top one, the product tenant is no longer going to be available, and maybe that is for an organization switching from a cloud-based HCM system to a new software solution. So maybe you're coming off of ADP Workforce Now and then moving over to the Kronos Ultimate Group product offering, or vice versa. And you need to grab your history before it's no longer available in your tenant. And so they're going to cut you off at, say, the end of February. You're going to go live mid-January, and you'll have the tenant for about another month, and then it'll disappear. So this goes through and captures the information from the existing tenant. It also is set up so that if you've got screens in your tenant at maybe like at year end or at quarter end, and you want to gather those screens out of the tenant for all your employees and save them for later on, that would be like maybe a benefit screen at year end would be a good example of that. We can go through and capture all those and then stow them away so they're easily refinable and searchable. So a product introduction tool contains reporting on basically what you have in your tenant right now: payroll and information totals, employee pay statements, both checks and direct deposit advices, any pay event, quarterly and yearly total reports, HR info, employment history. And then typically, if we can get a copy of a database or the actual data that's going behind the tenant, we'll try to put together a comprehensive job change history report for all employees in the current cloud-based tenant. Typically, people don't do a great job on a report that shows all jobs that were held by all individuals over the life of you use that system. So we usually concentrate in trying to capture that information. any attachments that may be in the database. Maybe you got your pay stubs as actual images of what they look like going out, or maybe W-2 statements, or maybe you have back history of your 941s, that type of thing. We can capture that and bring that into and stow it so you can have it available. We have different ways of delivering the content that is produced by HCMReporter. Documents can be delivered via secure Laserfish cloud solution. Laserfish is a document management system, and so this is how we can provide for additional search and storage capabilities for the documents. You can also have that as an on-premise situation. We also have a product that we call HCM Viewer, which is a 9-peak solution software product for a very simple list search, view, and print via web-based application with the SQL Server application in the background. Documents are placed into the servers or workstations folder structure at a client location, so you can just have this all dumped onto a machine. I don't encourage that one because of the volume of information that can come out of a previous HCM tenant. We'll look at that as we go through here as an example, and then we can also set it up so you have the documents and then comma separated value CSV files that you can use to load to another document management solution that may already be in use by that organization. This is a graphic to show what the different delivery methods are and what kind of features are available under each one of the different delivery methods. And the different delivery methods have different pricings to them, obviously. And we'll talk today specifically about, during the presentation, HCM Reporter being delivered in a delivery method number 1, which is Laserfish Cloud. We'll be doing a demo of both the HCM Reporter output as well as what it would look like in a Laserfish Cloud.
So Eric, you have a kind of a general question. I'm maybe not sure if it's answered here or later, but somebody who's, let's say, using ADP's Workforce Now, is there an advantage to use HCM Reporter in the current world, even if they're not moving? Are there advantages that you offer that ADP Workforce Now maybe does not?
Right. So the ever famous question with a cloud-based solution is I know what my screens look like right now. Can I save those? Can I go back to this later on? So maybe you've rolled over year-end time frame, and maybe the benefits numbers have changed, and so you could use HCM Reporter to capture those screens out of the tenant as you sit right now, and then tomorrow when it goes over year-end, you can say, okay, well, I can go back and still find what it looked like yesterday for all employees. You could do that via report as well, but typically, a lot of times, your people that are using the system, they know the screens and they want to see what they saw yesterday.
Gotcha. Okay. Maybe it helps in adoption of a brand new versus old, if you will.
Right. So you got your old situation still saved, and you can say, okay, I can see, okay, well, maybe this person's been married and they changed their dependents, and okay, we've got the demographic screen from the system from a month ago. Okay, this is what it looked like a month ago for that single individual, and he was withholding a higher rate, and now he's maybe he's married now and has an instant family, and he's got 3 dependents. So that's another solution, another scenario that where you'd be using that history from that you saved off.
Great. And we have another question. So, and I think the answer, I'll try to answer it. Is this screen capture, or is it information loaded into a database?
It is screen captured. And if you're changing off of the system, if you can get a database, then we'll use that for like that job history report that people usually don't have a good comprehensive report on, and will construct something out of your database specifically for that. Where I've seen that come up before is we've had the database, and we've used it for going back and picking up time card information across the whole database. We've also used it for job change history, anything where there may not be a good comprehensive report that you've saved off before you left the tenant. And so like on an ADP, sometimes they put some of that information in what they call their quitters tape that they use for data export to so people can go to a new system. We can capture some of that out of that type of a situation. But primarily what we're talking about here today with HCM Reporter is actually screen captures of the tenant that we have online. So that obviously makes timing important, because you want to have enough time from the time that you're switching systems to the time that your existing tenant goes dead, that you can capture all the information and then do your comparisons so your payroll and HR folks have confidence in what they're seeing within HCM Reporter.
Thank you.
Yep, good questions. So for features, there's no knowledge required in the current application software for new users. So you don't have to go back and say, for instance, you still have access to the old system. You don't have to train your new payroll and HR folks into how to use the old system. They can search for the stuff directly within HCM Reporter output. Information is easily retrievable. Anybody can do it if they have the correct security. You don't have to keep the full system up and running. So maybe this is a client server-based system that you're coming off of, and we've got solutions based around that as well. We can go through and capture screens or capture data out of the existing system and build reports, and we'll show the examples from that here in just a couple minutes. Obviously, some reduced IT support if you have a current on-premise situation, eliminating past operating system with SQL software assurance fees, eliminate software maintenance fees that you'd be paying the present vendor. Obviously, you can get quick access and design for audit and legal requests. So this is the state auditor coming in 3 years from now saying they want to look at the second quarter of 2020 and what you had for state unemployment taxes, that type of thing, being able to respond to those type of requests and seeing it in the system as it was at that point in time. Secure, obviously, set up for either a cloud-based solution or an individual machine within your organization or a server within your organization. No need to import pay history into the new system. And so this is one of the key ones right here is if you're going through a data conversion from an existing system to a new system, typically what happens is the new vendor is most interested in you getting live on the new system. Past history is an afterthought for them. A lot of people get the presentation of, well, let's get you live with your present employees, and then also maybe you're terminated employees from this year, and maybe the terminated employees from last year. So that'd be the census basically of what you're pulling across into the new system. And then they say, well, we can address the history import later on. And so that's typically what the vendors will say as they're bringing a new HCM system live. And the answer is a lot of times you don't go back and get the history. It just kind of just goes poof. If you've got reports in the vault, or you got reports on a DVD somewhere or on the network, then maybe you can make some of those things searchable. But a lot of times you don't have what you had. And so this is also the ability to make it easier for the people that have to import data into that new system. So typically, if you're doing that import and you're really going after the history, then you got to pull back in old pay rates, old deduction codes. Maybe you even have to go to the extent of pulling in old organization structure so you can tell where someone worked. Maybe it hasn't been in effect for maybe 10 years, but you still got to pull all that forward into your new system and junk up your new system with past information so you can do history reporting. With HCM Reporter, you don't have to pull that stuff forward because it's available for you underneath the HCM data. And so it makes that data conversion from existing system to your new state a lot easier to address for your data import people. And you can cut down on what you're really going to bring across. You also don't have to worry about the old system just disappearing overnight. And we're not going to support these servers anymore. We're not going to have updates on them anymore. You need to be able to turn the servers off. All of a sudden, all that goes away because you still have access to it in a very common denominator of either a TIFF or a PDF file.
So if you don't mind my interrupting there, because
jump in there.
That voice of experience again, folks. I will say that Eric has lived it, done that. But you have a question out there, and it really segues into another one. So Lisa's asked, how many years do you typically capture? So let's say from your client experience, certainly most people yelled at 7 years of payroll history. What are you seeing people doing? And then I want to comment or ask you a question on that one.
So typically what I see is people like to have their security blank of their data. And what they want to have is anything you can capture. And so maybe and we're dealing with one right now where somebody's asking about taxation information as it regards to retirement, and the individual that's asking about it, this is from the year 2003. And so the organization could say, well, you're well beyond the statute of limitations. Okay, yeah, that's the answer. You could do that. You could also say, we're trying to help you out and we'll see if we can find it for you. And so typically when we're doing an HCM Reporter product implementation and going after the information, we'll get everything. If you guys want to eliminate information so it's not present, you can cut it off easily by year, and we can say, okay, so this is what say for instance, the employee history data looked like as they were leaving the system. And then you can say, okay, we want to represent so far back. And we can say, okay, let's blank out anything that's past the year 2007 and earlier, something like that. And so you've got some choices as we're implementing. But most of our clients, what they want to see is if we've got the history, let's go ahead and do it. And we've actually done multiple systems at one time for a company. They've had 2 or 3 past history systems, and so we've gone through and captured data out of all of those and put it into one system that they could search and find things on across those different systems.
So you hit upon my next segue, but very quickly. So what if I have a pension plan? It strikes me to the 7 years. I mean, most pension records, especially payment records, are up for like 99 years if we live that long. So to your point, why cut off the history at a small kind of legislative or IRS threshold when you may need that data for other purposes? So you mentioned, and I think this is kind of cool about the fact that, history conversion tends to be that second phase situation, and people sometimes don't get to it, or if they do, they have to really, in a sense, bastardize the new system to accommodate the things they did to the old system. And even there, you probably had maybe 2 or 3 different iterations of bad structure, bad codes, whatever it is you did, or the vendor did. So I liked what you said about the fact that I can just bring all that stuff over into one place without converting it into the new system, and it is still available. And I think that's a very key aspect. I know that if I had a large conversion, that would be a consideration I would look at. Says, this is probably cheaper, faster, and more readily available to my users than going through the implementation process of conversion. And you want to start clean, so you might as well start with the new system current. End of sentence. Let me ask a question that's hanging out. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
I was going to highlight that, and I was going to say with deduction codes, I saw one system where if they were going to take everything across, they had like 65 different deduction codes they were going to bring across. If they're going to bring across just what they had in place, they're going to bring around 20 across.
Right.
And so a whole lot less for people to be able to go through when they're trying to figure out which deduction code do I need to put into this specific payroll so I deduct the right thing.
Absolutely. And then the question hanging out there, actually there's a couple of real quick ones, but security. So I bring them into the Laserfish solution. Can I apply security to what others are viewing in this lengthy period of history that I'm looking at now?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can have it. It's by user, and then you can get down into, if you really want to go deep, you can go to specific fields. And so Laserfish has a redaction feature to it, to where, say, for instance, you want some people to be able to see what's in the Social Security number field on the IMP history, and other people you don't. And so you can have that field show up as a white space, so they can't even tell that Social Security number was there, or they could have it show up as or one black it out. So it's going to say Social Security number and then black out what the number is, so the person knows that they can't see it. Or if the person has security to see it, then it just shows up as Social Security number and the Social Security number after it. And so you've got choices again on how you want to implement that security and how far you want to go down into the system.
Terrific. And the last question here from Roy is what kind of searching metadata do you capture?
Oh, that's a great question. Give that one a gold star. We're going to let Taylor take that one on here in just a couple minutes.
Okay.
And
we might get to slide 5 soon. So no.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. I'm going to hit a couple more things that are here on the features that you might like. We can integrate with other software systems with the optional Laserfish connector application, and we'll highlight that today too with the ever famous 9 Peaks Solutions fake payroll application. And we'll talk about what that means connecting your old system data to your new system state that you have. And we're going to pick it up right there, and we're going to throw it over to Taylor, and she is going to pick it up and hopefully.
Do I need to transfer the?
Yeah, actually, I can make her.
I think I got it.
All right. Maybe GoToMeeting did something right. Sorry. Go for it.
There you go. There you go, Taylor.
So picking up with showing you the Laserfish cloud and the types of documents we would bring out of a HCMReporter, implementation. I'm going to log into Laserfish. This is the Laserfish cloud, so it's web-based. And I'm going to log in with my own username and password, which assigns me certain security rights, which Eric touched on there. So when I log in here, you guys will see everything in our repository. But for example, if another user were to log in, they would only see 1 or 2 of these folders. So you can limit what users can see based on security rights that your company uses. This repository is where we do a lot of fun testing. I'm going to give you a quick tour. On the left side here, this is essentially just like your file explorer. You can see a folder structure on the left as well as in the center. There's a search bar at the top, and on the right side is where you'll see metadata associated with the documents. So that's where you're going to see the metadata to address the question we just had a bit ago. This is just a demo company here, ABC Enterprises. So any data you see here is not anyone's actual personal information as far as payroll or HR goes. This folder structure here is just an overview of potential types of documents we can pull out of an HCM system, including payrolls, totals, period totals for quarters, for the year, W-2s, employee history, benefit history, and like Eric mentioned, attachments if you have them. I'm going to start with payrolls because that's usually the bulk of what's in a payroll system. And we have them organized by payroll number. And you can see they all have a template assigned to them called payrolls. And within each payroll, you can see the, I'll wait for my screen to catch up. I see there's a little bit of a lag. There we go. You have every pay event for every individual that happened in that payroll, as well as totals. So the total amount that was paid out that payroll, total tax information, and things of that nature. So as far as the metadata that's captured for payrolls, for payroll totals, I'll just select this guy here, and you'll see the metadata that's captured here is the payroll number, the pay date, and the end date. For actual pay statements, we try and capture a bit more information, and that's also indicated in the file name itself. We collect the employee number, the full name, a sorted name, so I'll come back to that, a payroll number, a check number, multi-check number, pay period end date, pay date, and then a new employee number. This is an important field because, as Eric mentioned, there's a Laserfish connector that if you move into a new pay system and you have to assign your employees new pay numbers, we can include that information here so you can find all the history for that employee based on their new payroll number or their new employee number, as opposed to having to remember what their employee number was in an old system.
I apologize, Taylor. Do you mind if I ask a very quick question here? So would I build the Laserfish file upon conversion, move some data to my new system, not from the Laserfish, but from my old system, and populate this system as a conversion field because my new system is the one that's got the new employee number? How do I make that happen? What's the cycle that you would recommend to look at?
So Laserfish does have integrations with other systems. If you move into a new system and you have a list of employee names and their new employee numbers, we could use Laserfish to read that like a CSV and populate this field automatically so that it doesn't necessarily have to be filled in manually by an employee. If that's information that we can pull into a CSV, or if it's in a database, like a SQL database, then you can absolutely pull it in automatically.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. There's a question out here from Oral. Can you also have earnings and deduction codes in there? And I suspect you're just going to show us the pay statement, right?
Yes. So in a pay statement, we've got them on the PDF itself. If there are other fields in here that someone was looking to add, like if you wanted it as a metadata field here, that is certainly something we could add if it's in if it's on the screen or in the database. So I'll open up a pay statement to give you guys an example of what it looks like. This is less of a screen scrape, like this is more of if we pulled it out of a database, but a pay statement will pull things, obviously all of these key pieces of information, check date, pay date, name, employee ID. It'll indicate hours, their employer information, and tax information for that specific payroll, and deductions and any other information that might be important for that individual for that pay event.
So an example on those additional metadata fields that you might want to have out there, maybe you want to have a metadata field on the template for deceased, pension participant, retiree, something like that. We can easily set so there's additional template metadata fields.
And this is Nova again. So Oral's question gave it the way she stated. I don't know if she meant it this way, but I'm going to jump on that one. It says, "Can I have earnings and deduction codes on this file?" Well, the answer is yes. But my problem with looking at that as other than a pay statement is I would have to remember code 03 meant blah. And so your ability to translate it and present a more clearer picture by what you're showing here is much better and probably much easier to use for anybody. And I don't even need to remember what the codes were in the old system. And that's a huge advantage, huge. So one
other thing that Taylor will touch on here in a little bit is all the content that's in the PDF or the TIF statement is capable of being reached by optical character recognition, OCR. And so you can search down into, you know, which pay events had this deduction code on it. So maybe you've got somebody that's got a specialized deduction code for car allowance and they get it once a year. Maybe you want to go and do a search for car allowance on all the pay statements for a specific year to see who got a car allowance.
Very cool.
Yeah, and as Eric mentioned, as far as security goes, maybe someone can't see all of the pay statements, but they can see the period totals, and that's on a user by user or a group by group basis, and that's pretty easy to assign. So if you have users that need to get in and see just some of this information, that's easily accommodated in a cloud solution. I'm going to move out of pay statements since you guys have got a little look here and move into employee histories. These are this will track, you know, where you worked and when, who your manager was, things of that nature. And the type of metadata that we capture for something like that is their employee number, social security, full and sorted name, as well as new employee number if we needed to. Let my screen catch up here. For employee history, this is going to have a lot of their HR information in here, their salary information, their employment information, personal data, W-4 information, and any other miscellaneous things you may have in your HCM system that you would like to capture down the line, as well as dependents and things like that. Scroll through that.
So Taylor, let me ask a very quick question with regards to mergers and acquisitions. So what we normally see in that situation is somebody in one system their system is going away and they're going to be migrated over to whatever the new system is. It strikes me that capturing the old system data at the end of that day, if you will, coupled with capturing that same point in time in the existing system for the other part of the population and combine them, because my ears picked up when Eric said, and we can do it from multiple phases of different systems and bring it all in Laserfish, which means I would have a picture of both companies at a point in time before they truly merged. Is that something that others have done, or is that a possibility?
That is a possibility. That is something that if you're pulling data from different systems like that and catching it at a certain point of time when you move from A to B and B to C, that can be accommodated with adding more fields to the template by, you know, indicating that you went from A and this is where we were at. We went from B, this is where we were at, and tying those all back into a new system using something like Laserfish Connector.
So in a sense, the historical perspective of that merger and acquisition becomes another point of contact. Let's say from January 1st, 2021 backwards, I go over here for everything. Everything else going forward, January 1st of 2021 in the new system.
Yep.
It's eliminating that conversion, but it also doesn't lose the combination of the two now under the new entity, to look at both parties under different systems and bring it all together. That's to me, that's a very one person's opinion, a very important feature that you are providing.
Absolutely, and the ability to find information that you may need, historical information that may have happened before a conversion is, I think, critical.
Absolutely agreed. Thank you.
I will go over just a couple more document types, and then I'll do a quick demo of search and Laserfish Connector. We've got period totals. These totals will cover what happened by year and by quarter, and then a total for each year. And that captures, as far as metadata goes, the period. So was it a quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, or the year? The payrolls that were covered, the year that it happened, And inside that document, you can see exactly how much you paid in between payrolls 1 and 24 for the year 1998. And also W-2s. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with what a W-2 looks like, but in a lot of systems, if they're an attachment or something that is scanned in after the fact, we can collect them. And the information that we collect for a W-2 at this point is name, number, social, year, things of that nature. So one of the really great things about HCMReporter outputs in a Laserfish cloud solution is your ability to find documents. Eric mentioned that there are different ways that we can deliver this. Within Laserfish, they have a very nice search situation. So I'm gonna do a quick search here. There's a search bar at the top here. This is just a general search. It's going to search within the current folder, and I'm actually going to change this from modified in the last 30 days to anytime, and I'm going to run that search.
And as that's spinning away, I'm going to ask the question that Paul has asked, which that's very cool. Are the quarters for the data in these like, let's say, quarter end totals definable by a fiscal year rather than a calendar year? Can I go back and look at this stuff on a fiscal basis? I'm a July to June 30th type of thing.
So I'm going to answer that one a couple different ways, Nov. If you've got it in your present system and we're doing the screen scrapes, absolutely, we grab that screen scrape for totals by fiscal or by state calendar count. If you've got the database and you can tell us what the fiscal year definitions are, yeah, we could go through and capture it from the database. So there's a couple different ways to skin that one and make it available for people.
Cool, very good. Thank you.
All right, so I just ran a very generic search for John. And this screen here will tell me exactly what it searched. So it searched the document text. As Eric mentioned, all of the documents in Laserfish are OCR'd, so it can find words on a page as long as they're typewritten. It searched the entry names themselves, so that's the file names, all of the metadata fields, as well as any annotations. So annotations include adding a text box, a little post-it note, a highlight, a redaction, although the security on redactions is pretty tight. It searched within the folder I was in, which was ABC Enterprises, our fake company, and it didn't search by any date or any template. So here you can see we've got a pay statement for John Gregory, and he came back because obviously John is in the file name, but since I've selected it here, it'll also tell you it came back because it found John on the page 3 times. Twice on page 1, you can see there are context hits down here, and once on page 2, it found his name. So that's a second reason why this came back and is closer to the top of the list. We've got another John, got some more Johns, and there'll be, the further down I scroll, we'll find individuals who don't have John necessarily in the name of their file. You'll find, if I can load this fast enough, you'll find somebody named, maybe you'll see a Lisa or we've got a lot of Johns in here. And when I select someone who doesn't necessarily have John in the entry name, we can find there are people in here who just had John as their manager, so they came back in our search result. I did a very general search across a lot of documents. There are thousands of pay statements in here, and so it brought back a lot of stuff. You can make these searches as specific as you want. So there are ways to filter your searches. So I'm going to open up this add filter here. You can search by if there is a records retention schedule applied to a document. In Laserfish, you can apply a records retention schedule. So if you know you have to keep a document for 15 years and then it's eligible for disposition, you can apply that to your documents, and you can also search by those by those settings. You can search by text, you can search by type of document, you can search by document type, you can search for signatures if any were there. So using the search function is a way for individuals to find their historical information quickly and effectively without having to, you know, scroll through tons and tons of PDFs in a network drive.
So just to touch on one thing that people will probably want to ask about, there's a full audit trail on all these documents as well. And so you can tell what's happened with records retention, the disposition of the documents. You can also tell that you had the document at one time. And so that might be something that if you are going to want to eliminate information down the road based off of how many years it's been held, then you may want to have that audit trail to show that you had the records at one time and then it was eliminated per organization's document retention policies.
Absolutely. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring up another screen. This is, as Eric mentioned, what we call the Fake Payroll Pro. I'll let my screen catch up. So as Eric mentioned, and as we've talked about, when you saw in the metadata, we have a new employee number field. There is a tool called Laserfish Connector, and I believe y'all's screens have caught up with me. And unfortunately, I cannot make this this fake payroll program any bigger. This is a pretend payroll program. We've got 7 employees here, and once again, I apologize that this is so small. There's a tiny little L up here.
Got it.
This L is a Laserfish Connector. And I'm gonna just click on my little L, and what this does is it connects Fake Payroll Pro to Laserfish and runs a search for me. So it's gonna ask me to log in here. There I am. And it's gonna run a search I configured. So
the age-old question about single sign-on, is that supported throughout the whole thing? In other words, if I sign in, I want to get into all the stuff that you're giving me.
Yes, it does support single sign-on and Windows authentication.
Cool, thank you. Sorry, and I loved your dog, so that was cool.
Oh, yes, that's Tron, and I assume if you saw Tron, you saw my son also. He's they're a hoot.
They're stars now.
Yeah, if you hear anything in the background, that's them.
And so when you think of the 9 Peaks fake payroll application, think of your new HCM system, the one that you're going to. And so you're hooking your new system back to your old data.
That's right. So I configured a connector search that just searched for John Gregory. It looked for John F. Gregory, and this is what it brought back for me. So it brought everything back.
You've populated that new employee number in Laserfish.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's your connector. Okay, thanks.
So maybe you have a Laserfish connector entry for imp history, and maybe you will have one for pay history screens in your new systems, and then take it from there. And so that you can get the stuff. I see questions pulling up from Paul about whether you can nest searches and whether you can directly modify that search syntax over on the left-hand side of the screen that's being shown. And the answer, Paul, on both of them is yes, you can nest searches, and yes, you can. Once you're very good, you can go in and adjust search syntax directly within that window.
Great. And do you mind answering Gregory's question is behind that about the holds on a document? I suspect you have a kind of a retention function within Laserfish, or is that something that you have to activate, and can it be done, in a sense, what the question is, can I do that on certain documents?
Yeah, you can do it on
longer?
certain documents by folder. That's the easiest way to do it. You could do it on a document based off of a security tag is another way to do it. So there's lots of ways to configure that records retention policy around different ways to hold that document or not hold that document.
And then the age-old backup situation, the continuity perspective. If I destroy the folder, is it easy to get it back?
There's a Taylor can spin over into the same thing that you have on a Windows system where you have a recycle bin. There's that's that type of thing in the within the folder itself, within the repository itself.
There is a recycle bin that will hold things for 30 days. And I'll speak to the records management. There's a whole tab dedicated explicitly to records management, so you can find documents that are eligible for cutoff, disposition, or if you guys have vital records that need to be reviewed at a certain time. I don't know if I have any, I do have a record in here. So this record is, the final disposition action is to destroy. Laserfish will not destroy anything for you. If you have a records retention policy, and you, for example, may have multiple holds on a document for certain reasons, when you do a search for documents that you have record management actions on, you can view them all in one, but it will never destroy it for you. Whatever this folder is here, this file is here, had a schedule to retain for 3 years and then destroy. It was filed in 2014. It was eligible for destruction on this date. I would actually have to click that button there for it to go anywhere. Laserfish will not ever take a document away from you in a very permanent way like this without a user action. And that's where that audit trail comes back in. If you have critical records like this, or even just a regular document sitting in your repository, you know who and when acted on it, what they did. So if anything, God forbid, goes missing, you know who did it.
There we go.
So let's go ahead and try to wrap up the demo portion. I've got just a couple more slides, and then hopefully have a couple minutes for questions at the end.
All right, Eric, I will pass the screen back to you as soon as I can find you here. There you are.
Thank you, Taylor. So
I think everybody's questions have been answered so far. I have two that I'm holding, so I'll wait.
Okay. All right. Well, you can ask them. Let's going forward. Again, it's Laserfish is a full function enterprise content management system. We touched on maybe 40 to 60% of what Laserfish can do today. So much more capable system. We'll talk a little bit about that before we get done today. It can be done via cloud. It can be done on premise. It can run on a desktop. It can run via web. It can run on a mobile client. There's a lot of capabilities there. HCM implementation process, how we usually go about doing things. Any other files that people want to get and capture, we get them to produce those files for us. We go through and take those PDFs or those TIFFs and get those delivered to us. We take a database backup or the tenant login to 9 Peaks. We go through and produce the documents from the database or tenant's content using 9 Peaks HCM Reporter, and we call it the Reaper program or File Creator program. It goes by either name. The Grim Reaper going out and capturing the information. And this is a visual of what we see on our side as we're running the Reaper and then also the file uploader The Reaper is gathering the information. The file uploader is putting it into Laserfish. In the background, over on the right-hand side here, you'll see the Reaper program running and capturing information. In the background, you'll see the screens actually coming up, being driven off the Reaper program, and it's going to be capturing those screens and putting them into TIFFs. And the front portion of the program here that's running is going to be the Laserfish uploader, and we're actually uploading that into the person's tenant. And so you can see when I click the magic button and let things run, you can see the uploader running in the foreground. You can see the screens changing as the Reaper is pulling information over on the right-hand side and then driving the screen capture over behind the scenes. And again, the client never sees any of this. This is all done behind the scenes as we're gathering the information up. This is an example of what the results might look like for a given client. This is the Reaper's results as he goes through and collects all the addresses, allocations, and the different screens within the system. You can see that the client that we did here had 8,525 employees in their tenant. We went through and gathered 379,475 pay histories. We gathered 16,901 W-2s. Total files that we captured were 642,547 for this client. So the underscore Y in Laserfish is important for search capabilities. Here it is right now, just based off the amount of information and the type of information that you're going to get, so you can filter the information easily and access what you want to get to.
The system doesn't play Don't Fear the Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult as it's going through there, is it?
No, great question.
Added feature. That would be a nice idea. No,
but no, it doesn't.
Paul has asked a question here about comparing an old system to new system and mapping capability to establish differences in deduction codes, earning codes, and so on. So I'm going to ask Paul, just open up your mic and ask it, what is the end objective for that question? Because I think there's a different way to approach the answer on it.
So can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you, Paul.
Yep, okay. So when you convert from the old system to the new system, you may have, obviously different codes for a variety of reasons for any deduction or earnings, what have you. And you run a calculation in your old system and the new system. You want to compare them, see if everything's working, right? So you have to be able to map those old codes to the new codes, even if it's just if you're not running the payroll and trying to do like a parallel and compare the results. But even the fact that you just got all the deductions correct for employees and all the new codes are set up differently from the old codes. So you need to be able to map, this is equal to that, this is equal to that. And then sometimes you have a code that might actually split. So an old system might actually do a combination of data that when they combine or when they go to the new system, they split out, but combining the totals and the two totals of the deduction should compare, right? I mean, there's all sorts of different scenarios, right? I'm kind of in the weeds with you here, but
yeah, I got you, Paul. And the answer is when we're doing a data conversion, we prepare those crosswalk documents to say what equals what. And I would say bring those crosswalk documents directly up into Laserfish so they're accessible 5 years from now, so you can see exactly what went on in the data conversion. One of the things we didn't touch on really with Laserfish at all, it integrates directly to Microsoft Office. You can put in an Excel spreadsheet. You can really put in any kind of document that you want. And so a Word document, an Outlook email message, any kind of thing. Audio file, video file, lots of different capabilities. So the answer is, I encourage you to just grab those crosswalk documents, drop it right up into, this is how we did the data conversion.
Great. We are coming up on the hour, and Eric, don't go anywhere, please. I will say to the audience, I will keep the recorder going over the 1 o'clock time. If you have to scoot, I certainly understand. I will personally just say to Eric and Taylor and Lauren, thank you very much, but I'm staying. We're keeping the recording going, and we'll continue as long as people want to stay.
Okay, that sounds good. We run through, grabbed all this content. We produced counts on the documents, verify we got everything. Take the Laserfish counts, cloud accounts, and get them provisioned so that people have their logins, and then run through and take the documents generated, and we upload those with the uploader program like you saw just a minute ago. And then we take the cloud and deliver those accounts and the repository content out to the end users, do some training on search, repository content, integration with Microsoft Office, and then configure the Laserfish connector if you have wanted that feature enabled. Few words on PDFs. If we generate PDFs for you, the content's locked by password, so the individual on each individual PDF, so nobody can monkey with the information. We put custom property fields behind the scenes on each document to say who it was produced, where it was produced from, what database, when it was produced, and who produced it. And that way your auditors, if they ever have a question about chain of authority on a document, they can go right in the document and see that the authority is there. This is typically the screen that people ask about what is going to cost next and for steps. And I usually say we'll put together a proposal based on HCMReporter. And then if you had first database or first tenant that we're grabbing, it's $59.49. If there's a second one and we're going to grab information of like type, it's $19.49. If there's more than 5,000 employees, we have an overage charge there. A cloud subscription is $600 per seat for the basic to start out with. There's different tiers. Definitely open to talk with you about the different tiers of features within Laserfish Cloud subscription. There's some services to implement and gather all your stuff up and make it happen, and then get your W-2s and all your other files, produce the documents and do your training. And then usually we have a non-disclosure agreement that's signed before we get too far along into the process. And there's a link right there on the screen for you can actually test out that if you want to. You can put in 9peaksolutions.com/NDA, and that is an example of Laserfish itself. And it's a document so that when you review the document online and sign it, it actually turns around, produces the PDF, and emails it back to you directly. And so it's an example of our own work with the forms portal. Obviously, a consulting contract and a statement of work are involved as well along the line. So you can see what you're going to get before you even get it. And then there's a Laserfish cloud agreement at the time that your tenant goes from trial to production that you sign electronically, and that's the cloud agreement with Laserfish. Closing points and questions, just any Q&A that you might have, and I'll do a little bit of a tease here. I mentioned that we didn't really touch on all the capabilities for Laserfish. Laserfish has electronic forms, workflows, surveys, all sorts of capabilities that you can bring to bear. One of the things that we're going to talk about next week is a questionnaire for COVID, and specifically what you might want to have your employees fill out before they hit the door to come and check in for the day. So maybe they're completing this form on their phone in the parking lot. They're getting ready to check in for the day, and there's a lot more to what we're going to put up for next week. But just a tease, it's a Android tablet that does facial recognition that ties to your current HCM system for employee ID or employee name up here, matches the information that they put on the COVID questionnaire and takes the person's temperature and puts that picture directly into this COVID form, notifies individuals that if someone's above acceptable rates for temperature. And we've got two different products there. We've got the 1 and 2. The 1 is, it's just a Bluetooth with a temperature device. The 2 is the actual facial recognition, identify the employee, and put the picture and the temperature in the form. So there's lots of capabilities there that we're going to actually talk about and demo next week. Just, you know, you've just seen it to touch the tip of the iceberg on the Laserfish forms. I encourage everybody to come back next week and take a look at what we do. We're actually going to run a form during the session next week, and we're going to ask people to participate with us, and there will be participation prizes associated as well. We'll have a form through our forms portal that we're going to ask you to fill out and help us name the product. We don't have a name on this product yet. We refer to it in-house as the devil detector. And so we're going to ask you to help us with the name of the product and take it beyond devil detector 1 and 2 next week. And so you'll get an opportunity to fill out a form. You'll get an opportunity to help us with the naming. You'll also get an opportunity to take a look at the product.
And I will tell you this much, Eric, you will get everything you can ever imagine and more than you wanted from this crowd. I guarantee that. So, no, thank you very much. Let me ask generally, are there any other questions from the audience? I know some of us have to leave. I do have 2 questions we'll capture on the recording, so that way if somebody else got interested and went and binge watched this session, along with all the others we've done, that we would hear it. So I'll wait. But any other questions from anyone else? Okay. Well, let me ask you this question. So you mentioned you've got ADP Workforce Now, so you've got UltiPro and so on. What other systems are in the works or are available to move into or from, if you will, or what's on your shall we say, your roadmap? And also the perspective, what would it cost if I come to you and say, I need to do XYZ system, and you go, I've never heard of it, but we'll do it. What are we talking about in terms of that capability? Because you've named a couple of the more commonly used ones, but there are going to be opportunities for people wanting to convert out of something else.
I put proposals together in the last week based around Prism. I've also put proposals together around a couple of very old client server systems, and we almost have to look at what you have and whether we can do a screen scrape capture, or whether we're going to have to go in and actually see if we can break apart a database to construct the reports. And so what is it going to cost? And it's going to be, we're going to need to look and do a little discovery work to figure out what that is. But we're more than willing to do that. I do want to expand it beyond UltiPro, ADP Workforce Now, and the Enterprise 5, obviously, so that we have more things. Typically, we'll split some cost with whoever's doing that, so that we have more arrows in our quiver as we go to market.
Gotcha. You do have a question from Brendan here. He's saying, are you in the SAP space? I don't think yet, but you would like to be.
We'd like to be, obviously. If somebody's switching off of one of the SAP offerings that they have out there, SuccessFactors, we could do something like that very easily. It's one of those things where this is probably more discussion on what you'd want to capture, what kind of data and how much of the screens, or we're going after everything that's in the tenant.
Perfect. And then the other question is this idea that we're certainly looking at HCM systems as being certainly a conversion component, getting out of and going to something new. But quite often what I'm finding, and again, I'll put it in the context that sometimes pre-electronic systems, we were into capturing paper, which we would then move to fiche or into a document management system, scanning and so on. Have you had that experience, or would you recommend that even looking at, let's say, a current document management system would allow us to convert from there into Laserfiche? And again, this idea of maybe combining an old system and a bunch of, on base or the documents sitting out there, to combine them into a Laserfiche file as a point of time going forward as the history.
You can probably tell just by the camera view that maybe I've seen a couple different situations. In
yes.
One of the things I did at one time was I was, for lack of a better title, I was a shell answer person for a technical payroll and HR company. And so I traveled all over everywhere. I've made coffee in about 300 different companies at one time or another and in their site. And so I've seen the basements, I've seen the crowded rooms, storage rooms, I've seen the file cabinets that people give up on filing stuff. I've seen the green bar paper in the banker boxes that probably, you need to capture somewhere in line. But that's another day. And so we have methods, we have ways of going back and either turning that out to a third party to digitize and then pull straight into Laserfiche. There's capabilities within Laserfiche. The feature would be called Quick Fields, to where you can do what's called a zone OCR. If you've got something that's typewritten on the document, then you can capture. We went through and did the very oldest box of data for one client one time, that they wanted to have what their records looked like as they started the company. And so they had green bar paper from back in the 60s. So for instance, about 10 feet away from me, I have a large format scanner that would fit that green bar paper. And we have people that can go through and capture that at minimal cost. And so you got the way of the record, whether it's fish or whether it's green bar paper, or maybe it's maybe you've got a banker's box full of payroll check registers for the years. We could capture that information, and maybe that's the only place you have that stuff. We can go through and make a good plan for you, whether we're doing it, whether you're doing it, or whether you're having a third party that's in your locale do it. We have ways to do that.
Outstanding. Any further questions from the audience?
Not a question, just an idea for
Sure.
Eric, and that if you haven't considered it already, there's a cottage industry that is burgeoning to help companies pull out of PEO relationships and implement their own systems. And I've gone through those conversions many times in the startup world, and that might be, I've noticed that there are consulting firms that are popping up here and there that are helping companies do that conversion, to pull their data out of the HR and benefits management and payroll systems from PEO relationships into their own.
Yeah, and that one comes up on a regular basis, because typically the PEO organization says, no, that data is ours.
Right.
They were our employees, and we are only leasing the employee to you. We'll only give you minimal stuff. And the answer is yeah, if you can get it on a screen or you can get it on paper, we can get that and make it available so that you don't go poof and lose all your all the good stuff that you're going to want to have down the road when you leave that PEO relationship.
Very cool. Anything else? If not, so Eric, if I could ask you and maybe Taylor and Lauren to hang back for a moment, I'm going to turn off the recording and welcome or let everybody go and maybe get lunch or dinner at this point in time for some of folks. We'll see.
Okay.